So I noticed that somebody left like a stack of baseball cards over here, and one of the cards out of this deck that they left was one, I think it's a 1991 premiere of Willie McGee. And cool story, Willie McGee used to live in my hometown, and there's a photo, I think I was like 7 or 8 years old at the time. I was with my family, with my parents at the park that's down the street from our house, and my mom noticed Willie McGee there, and I was a big baseball kid. I was a big baseball kid growing up, and I think Willie was like throwing soft toss to a grandson, something like that. And my mom was like, "Go in and take some swings." So there's a photo of Willie McGee feeding me some soft toss. There's a photo of us together. I remember that day because my swings were awful that day. I mean, they were awful to the point where I'm here and not out there, but that day especially were not great. But today is the final game of Cactus League play for the Giants. They tie the Arizona Diamondbacks 7-7, and despite it being the final day, we were not just cruising along here. We got a lot of stuff to cover. The big news from today being that the Giants have optioned Kyle Harrison, meaning that the battle for the 5th spot in the rotation is going to come down to Hayden Birdsong and Landon Roop. This isn't too much of a surprise if you've been following along over the course of the spring. As you know, Harrison lost 10 to 15 pounds right before spring training started and has basically been behind the 8 ball for the entirety of spring training. Roop and Birdsong made their Cactus League debuts on February 22nd and February 23rd, respectively. Harrison didn't make his until February 28th. Roop and Birdsong threw 12 innings each. That doesn't include their outings at Papago Park. Harrison only threw 6 2/3 innings. So he's been behind both of them and just the rest of the starters in general as he's been recovering from that. And Melvin has kind of dropped some hints along the way. He has alluded to multiple times that he didn't think that Harrison would be built up in time for the opening day, and that's going to be the case. So Harrison, after making the opening day roster last season, won't be with the Giants to start this season. That doesn't mean we're not going to see him at some point this season. We're going to see both him and Roop and Birdsong all at some point in the majors this season. As far as when it's going to be for Harrison, it's too early to tell. I asked Melvin, is it simply going to be a case of when Harrison is built up and fully ready to go, they're going to find a spot for him? And he responded by saying, right now we're just focused on getting the opening day roster set. So something to monitor going forward. We're going to see how that shakes out. Of the duo of Roop and Birdsong, I've said this before, I put it in the opening day projection a couple days ago. I do believe that Birdsong is the favorite to land that spot of the two. He's been phenomenal in spring. He had elite strikeout stuff last season. I think it was like 88 strikeouts and 73 innings. The walks were a major concern for him last year, but this season he hasn't walked, or this Cactus League play rather, he hasn't walked a single batter, has just looked really good. Roop has had a great spring in and of himself. He's had a 3.75 ERA. He had that 13 strikeout outing over at Papago Park against Colorado Rockies minor leaguers. But between the two, just given how Birdsong has performed this spring, given how he performed in a limited run last year, ERA aside, kind of just looking at the strikeout stuff, I do think he has the edge. That being said, it's not difficult to envision a scenario where Birdsong is in the opening day rotation and Roop is in the opening day bullpen. We've asked Melvin if that was a possibility. He says, yes, it is a possibility. Nothing guaranteed, nothing definite, but it does seem like that is a clear trajectory for this Giants team going forward. Another important bit of news was that Keaton Wynn was optioned, but Joey Lucchesi was also reassigned to minor league camp. That means that there are now 0 non-roster invitee lefties remaining, which means the Giants are going to open the season with Eric Miller as the only left-handed reliever in their bullpen. They're confident in the guys that they have, the righties that they have, in their ability to get outs. It is a bit untraditional to have only one lefty opposed to 2. I don't think that's going to be the case for the entire year. I think we're going to see a second lefty in the bullpen at some point. But as of right now, going into opening day, the Giants are only going to have the one lefty. We also received an update on Jerar Encarnacion. He's going to be out at least 4 to 5 weeks as he deals with a hairline fracture in his left ring finger. He sustained it yesterday when he was going after a ball, dived pretty awkwardly. The weight of his hand kind of landed under him, and that just ended up with his finger bending in a kind of awkward position. And there's no ideal time to get injured. I mentioned this in the Jung-Hoo Lee video, but especially when you consider Encarnacion's path to this point. He signed with the Marlins in, I believe, 2015, spent 6 seasons in the minors, made his debut, wasn't great with the Marlins in 2022, doesn't play in the majors in 2023, plays in the Mexican League, hits 19 homers in 26 games, signs with the Giants, tears it up with AAA Sacramento, ends up with the Giants at the major league level, shows flashes of what he can do, especially when it comes to the exit velocity, the average bat speed, the barrel percentage, things of that nature. And there was very clearly a path for him to make this opening day roster, especially given how well he performed in the Winter League and how well he performed in Cactus play. So he's yet to experience an opening day. He'll have to wait at least one more year to have that opportunity. It looks like, optimistically, he could potentially be back by May or maybe June. Again, with injuries, it's always a wait-and-see process. I would like to say there is a real possibility of him being transferred to the 60-day injured list, which would in turn create a spot on the 40-man roster, at least for the time being. As far as how they go about filling that spot, there's a lot of different options. There's a lot of different possibilities. I think Luis Matos, who was probably going to be on the opening day roster regardless, this kind of guarantees his spot now. I can see Matos splitting time with Wilmer Flores as opposed to Flores splitting time with Encarnacion. I think in turn the Giants go with Grant McCray. I think that's probably the best option there because of McCray's ability to play the outfield. But again, there's a lot of different ways the Giants can go with this. That's just the one that I see being the most realistic. We've talked about David Villar as well and how he's out of options, which means if the Giants don't have him on the opening day roster, they have to designate for assignment. This, in theory, would create a very clear opening for him to be on the opening day roster. Probably the clearest path, but it doesn't seem like that's going to be the way the Giants go with this. On the more positive side of things, Jung-Hoo Lee resumed baseball activities today after not doing much of anything for roughly a week as he deals with that back injury. He was hitting, he was throwing, he was fielding fly balls. The expectation is that he plays in tomorrow's game against the Sacramento River Cats. Melvin has talked about the Giants wanting Lee to play in at least 3 games before opening day. Of course, after today, there are only 3 games, that being the Sunday exhibition against the River Cats, as well as Monday and Tuesday against the Tigers. Jung-Hoo obviously doesn't have to play a full game in any of these games, but just getting him out there, just getting his legs back under him, that's going to be the important thing. And Melvin did say that based on how Sunday goes, he believes that Jung-Hoo has enough time to get ready for opening day in Cincinnati on March 27th. I won't be covering the next 3 games, that being the exhibition in Sacramento, as well as the 2 exhibitions in San Francisco. So the next time I will talk to y'all will be in Cincinnati.